Right, Sergey, what's resource smoothing? Coming back to what's on screen, what was resource smoothing again? What was it also known as?
Resource smoothing will be the what was it? Time? No, not time. Resource limited scheduling. No, was it resource or time limited?
That's what I was asking you actually. So you've meandered through both.
Time limited.
You're right. It's time limited.
Yes.
Right. So do recognise that, team. It's right. Resource smoothing is time limited scheduling. Okay, so resource smoothing, time limited scheduling. Can you remember what options we had there, Joe? If we're in time limited scheduling, just try and visualize that resource histogram. That cannot move to the right. We can't extend it. So what options did we have within the overall process known as smoothing? What were our options, Joe?
I'm going to need a hint on this one.
Utilize flow. There's one that you can go with.
And overtime.
Right. Go on, Holly.
Overtime.
Right. So all we effectively need to do you remember on that, when we were doing that scheduling, we looked at the training task. Right. I'm asking you to sort of remember back if you've got the histogram to hand. Right. Can you remember I said to you, once we assigned 2 resources to each of the activities, so we did the network diagram, we did the Gantt chart, and then we said, let's just assume that each of the activities needs 2 resources, and we put the number 2 above each of the bars, and we use that to create the resource histogram, which gives us a picture of the loading. And I tasked you with trying to work out how many people would I need to go to the resource manager and sort of say, right, to run this project, Mr. Resource Manager or Mrs. Resource Manager, how long I could do with how many resources. Can you remember what the answer was, Sergey?
Dale's just made it way too easy. It's 4.
Excellent. Right. So why did we only need 4, Dale, and not 6?
Because we smoothed out other resources.
Because we utilized float and we delayed the training task. Do you remember we delayed the training task by 5 days, which effectively chopped off one of the peaks within the resource histogram? Because that's what we're doing. At this point, we're seeking to optimize the number of resources, right? The resource availability, chopping off the peaks, filling up the troughs. One of the other options for us was utilizing overtime. If there wasn't enough float, we could utilize overtime. That's effectively getting more out of our people, isn't it? So we could work weekends or whatever. Or another one is to bring in additional people from other parts of the organization. We have to do whatever we need to deliver the thing on time. And a classic example, I think I came or suggested with this was something like the Olympics. That would be time limited scheduling. Those Olympics would have to occur at that time. Right, so resource leveling, Sophie, was also known as what?
Resource limited scheduling.
Very good. Right, so resource leveling is also known as resource limited scheduling. Can you remember what example I gave of classic resource limited types of project? Sophie?
Not really.
No worries.
No
Shireen?
worries. Shireen?
Oh, we're getting some feedback there. No idea, Shireen?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, she said nonchalantly. You could have said York Minster, but you said Notre Dame. Why was that?
Help from some colleagues. Can't take any. Yeah, it's
Right.
not
Good to know people are using the chat line or texting or whatever. So why is Notre Dame an example then, Shireen? So does this mean you're on your own now, or?
Oh,
What-
because
what-
you'd be using
use
people with
an example?
specialist skill set.
Right, so like just look at the term resource limited. So your resource manager might say to you, I'm sorry, I've only got 1, 2 people available. There's a situation, right? That often occurs in smaller organizations or organizations that are under pressure. But classically is where you've got significantly specialist resources. So you think of the Notre Dame restoration project at the minute, there will be real specialist activities going on there, repairing stained glass windows, restoring masonry, some of the old oak beam structure in the roof, because all of that really suffered with the fire. So that's other situations where you would see resource limited scheduling. All right, so that's where we finished the discussion last week then, team.